Hello,
Hi,
Chris.
Hi, hey mate, how you doing?
Not too bad, and hello everyone, and welcome to the last transmission. And what we're doing Tuesday night soon comes round again. I prefer Tuesdays, Chris. I don't know about you.
I prefer the Tuesday, and obviously we had a week off last week. I had a trip to A&E, which was eventful, but yeah, mystery continues with that one. So yeah, it's a week off. I don't think I could have done the show, to be honest. They're a bit rough.
No, everything would have
week,
weren't it? But it doesn't matter. We're here now, and loads of things to talk about. And as usual, guys, we're here for a couple of hours. Questions to Lorraine in capital letters. Your views, your thoughts, and like we say on Truth Proof, and like we're saying on last transmission, if you've got anything you want to share with us and you want to come on for 10 minutes, half an hour, you're welcome to do that. Just email Chris or myself. I'm sure the links will be there somewhere, Chris, won't they, in description? And, we can cater for that. But I don't know. It's been an eventful kind of week. And last night we managed to film this SpaceX, which everybody's been talking about, which is interesting. And
yes, everybody's, it's absolutely, it's everywhere, isn't it? It's there's a lot of controversy, should we say, about what that is. But look, as with any event in the world of ufology and the unexplained, I think sometimes people will purposely disagree on things. But look, it's interesting. So do you want to do a few name shouts before we?
Yeah, I will do. Yeah, I will do, and then we'll get back to that, because I mean, everybody, like you've just said, kind of gravitates. Not everybody, but they want it to be true unexplained phenomena. It's probably explainable, but I've found a few anomalies in this which are interesting, which I know you've talking to me about today. So let's just have a quick look here. We've got Mike, Disabled Welshman, Tino, Sober Carper, Andy H, Tom Waters, good to see you, John Paul Body, Mag Sue, Stephen Collin. Let's have a look. Rivington Pike and Lee. Scotch Mist, Zero Dawn. I know Linny's in. I think Pete will be watching. Linny filmed that with me last night as well. We got between us each between 10 and 12 minutes of footage. And I gave camera to Pete, but we'll just carry on with these names and we'll get into that. David Hunt, Nikki Griffiths. We've done Tino, haven't we? And Scotch Mist. I'm running out of space for people here, despite the fact that we're close to 100 people in chat. So apologies, guys. We'll come back to that. And your views on SpaceX, block capitals for Lorraine, if possible, and Lorraine will put them up as and when she sees fit. And I saw Dragonborn were in, Steve Tees, Rod, and let's have a look. Yeah, I think we've just about covered it that I can see there. And as soon as I say it, Simon Riley appears, so I didn't see Simon. So shall we jump back to SpaceX for a moment?
Yes, just quickly, thank you guys for the well wishes, most appreciated. A few of you have messaged me, and a few messages tonight. So yes, nice to be cared about, should we say. So yeah, SpaceX, obviously woke up to loads of notifications about this and watching people ranting back and forth, and some of the threads are really interesting. I personally think there's something interesting about it. There's something odd about it, in my opinion. Now, obviously, you and I have not had hours to dig into this subject because I've been working today and you've been busy with your own stuff going on, which is separate from this. So, but what did happen last night is that you guys managed to film it.
We did film it, Chris, and I know I've sent you about 30 seconds, and it's a bit up and down filming. What I did, I'd got the Sony NX80 with me as well, and I thought, well, I've got an opportunity to film this, so I gave the camera to Pete. And he's done his best. He's filmed it, but Pete hasn't rested on anything. Not having a go at you, Pete. I'll see you tomorrow night. He'll probably chuck me over at cliffs. But it's there, the footage. But what's interesting, I've picked this 30 seconds out of nearly 12 minutes of footage, because I think that people are going to say, oh, yeah, he's saying he's got best footage. No, I think we've got really good footage. And most people who saw that last night will have looked up and done what we all do and got the mobile phone out and took a picture or a bit of film. What we had with us were Psionics cameras. Interestingly, whatever SpaceX is, let's assume that that's what we're dealing with. I assume it's one object. Yet through the full sequence, like we saw it first of all over towards Filey and Scarborough. And then when it became clear to us, there's two lights. So there's one main light and then there's another one, and they're traveling together. And they don't change. One doesn't go up, one doesn't go down. They're traveling together. And if someone wants to do the maths for us, because I don't know what altitude this was. I don't know whereabouts it was actually, but the distance between these two lights is immense. So we know it's not all SpaceX. So what was the second light? Not only that, as Linny pointed out earlier today, and Mia Girl's in as well, Jojo, Steve Tees, Margaret Webster, Stephen Collin. Linny pointed out earlier today, have you looked at your footage yet? Well, I'd only looked at a bit of it, and I had another look after he mentioned it to me, and I went through it. We know satellites are all over the place, but they look like they're swarming around it. At some points, there's 5 and 6 satellites around this thing, and they're not vague. You're not thinking, maybe that were a satellite. I can't really tell. They're there in footage. It's undeniable. And what I'm saying, Chris, is that a lot of people have just had the phones, and you're going to get these nice pictures, but you're not going to pull out the detail of this second light and these satellites that we've managed to capture. So I think between us, between last transmission and between Truth Proof, we'll be putting a couple of little films together for you guys to view it in its entirety, or at least say 10 minutes after we've chopped out a few choice words from Pete and other bits, like, you know, as we get a bit excited at what we last night, we hadn't a clue. So yeah, interesting.
Excuse me. For those that don't know, I mean, you've got Andy, and hi Andy, Andy Rawlins here saying it is a fuel dump. Now that's the official.
Yeah, good point.
That's the official explanation. But there are a few anomalies with that I was just able to come across without looking into forums, just looking at random bits of information, depending on who you're speaking to. Now, a lot of people didn't know, and I didn't know, that part of SpaceX's rocket, it rotates, hence the spiral. So as it's coming back down and they're dumping the fuel, that's basically what happens.
Okay.
That is allegedly what creates the spiral effects as it's rotating. They're dumping this fuel. They don't say how much fuel they're dumping, of course. And of course, the other thing, why would Elon Musk, that has, you know, pretty much ruled out fuel or common fuels as a form of combustion, if you like, he said that we're way past that. So let's pretend, because I don't buy a word SpaceX say about anything, but there's just too much evidence to the contrary. But that's not to say that they're not doing official. Some of what they're doing isn't official, because like anything masquerading as something else, that's the way things work. Same with NASA. The problem with it, the anomalies that I found, was that if this is supposedly taking place over a matter of minutes,
yeah,
some sources are claiming that spiral shouldn't be fixed. It should be moving. It should be almost like you would get like a trail. It should be moving in the atmosphere. It should be drifting across, not creating a perfect spiral. But then then some sources will say, well, they dumped the fuel that quick that it forms these ice crystals, and that's what you're looking at. Well, the shape of it consistently changes. And also one of the other criticisms of this is that if you're looking at it, it shouldn't, and you can check this online. Anyone that's access to the internet now, like aside from this, and they want to have a look, it shouldn't look the same from places that are 1,000 miles apart. It just shouldn't. It shouldn't from places in Europe. It shouldn't look the same. You're getting the identical view. It should be different. Well, so you know what is that? Now, look, again, this is me just a few minutes today, just scouring the internet and seeing what I can find.
Just kind of fueling fire, and it's worth debating. And as that said, Andy said that it's SpaceX. We're not saying it's not, Andy, but it said it. The news sources say it could be seen for several minutes. I can assure you that we filmed it for 12 minutes. Yeah. And we were walking down the cliffs, and as we got to our destination, and it must have took us 4 or 5 minutes, I turned around and I said, "What's that?" So it could have been there even longer, I guess what I'm saying, and we started filming it. So several minutes for us were 12 minutes. What is the second light? That's what I'd like to know, because that's not spiraling. And as Pete said, and he made a good point, I think it was Pete, he goes, let's assume that there's going to be a show of the Northern Lights, or there's a comet, or you have a chance to see the Starlink, then it's usually on the news, on your local news and things. Oh, it's a great, if there's clear skies tonight, you've a chance to see whatever it is, comet, or you could see the Northern Lights. The SpaceX will be flying over. The good chance that you could see it in your area if you get out and look at them. The sky's clear. There were nothing. Nothing was spoken about regarding this anomalous light. So let's sort of go with the idea that, yeah, Andy's right, it's SpaceX. But I still want to explain what this other light was. And if anybody's in chat who can do the maths and find out how far away from us this light was, and then kind of look at that image that we're going to show you, this sort of moving, it's a bit jumpy, the image, you know, because, well, it is. And but the distance between is immense. So what is that other light? And
also the other anomaly that I could find is SpaceX launched 2 or 3 times a week, allegedly. Now, again, this, I suppose it relates to exactly what they were doing and where they were going, you know. So why don't we see this more often? If this is the case, this should be seen regularly. This is quite rare. But I know people say, oh, well, they've been seen before. They can probably give you a handful of instances where this occurs. Then someone's going to come forward and say, well, it's a matter of, it's all the right
atmospherics.
Yeah, it's the conditions required. And it's like, it's just seems too convenient because it's always the same excuse. But at the same time, like we said earlier, I'm not claiming it isn't SpaceX. I'm just claiming it sounds odd to me and it looks odd. But what we need is probably a SpaceX fanboy who could probably explain all this.
And that's just
probably what you're looking for.
And tell us what this second light is. So
shall I put it up, mate, so they can have a look at it?
There's only 30 seconds, people. In the next few days, hopefully, between last transmission and truth proof, we'll be putting at least 9 minutes of footage up, 10 minutes of footage up, and having a little talk through what happening between them both.
Okay.
Oh, there's, yeah. Can you see it? Yeah.
Second one. You wouldn't have got that the second light with the mobile phone, I don't think, you know. And you've got to have something like a psionics to have pulled that out.
So what did you observe, like looking at this? What do you think the light in the center? What are you observing?
Well, first of all, obviously this object, if it's the SpaceX, is spiraling and throwing out the fuel, and that's what people have said. But for the most part, it's not. It's just traveling. It looks like it's traveling in a continuous course. It doesn't look to be spiraling, but obviously something's creating the spiral. But it's not doing that all of the time. At one time, it almost looks like it's an angel flying through the sky. You know, you can imagine in biblical times or in ancient times, if somebody had seen something like this, where they'd have got the term the angel, and an angel appeared and flew through the sky. This would have probably been written down as some kind of ancient manuscript of some celestial body appearing, you know. But I suppose that's where legend is born. But you know, we're supposed to be a little bit more advanced, and we've explained it away as SpaceX. I want to know what the second light was, and I'll be happy to settle on SpaceX after that. And you know, as I said, there's 12 minutes of it, and it's in fairness, it is a lot steadier than that most of the way through. But I wanted to focus on those 2 lights just to show you guys in chat what I'm talking about.
We can probably stabilize it anyway, mate. I don't think you know, if you send it me, I'll stabilize it. And again, I think that again it rotates apparently. Something to do with the stability of the rocket. That's why it rotates rapidly, and when they dump this fuel.
Well, it must do it in bursts then, Chris, because I reckon for first 5 or 6 minutes, we just saw this light that looked like a triangle. We've got like I don't know, like a splay of light that went down in a V. And in Pete comments, he said it's a triangle with light in front of it, which it weren't, but that's what it looked like. And as it's coming through, and then it started to spiral. And then it sort of tapered off, and then it went away. But all the time, we probably got 6 minutes of 2 lights there. And then when it's directly over us, you can clearly see, and I mean clearly see, 5 and 6, if we want to call them satellites, all moving about around it, all moving in different directions. And we don't normally see that either. You know, we see lots of satellites. We're in an area where there's a lot of unpolluted sky, so you'll see them traveling in different directions and almost passing each other. We know they'll be miles and miles apart, but there's a lot all in that same area. And we haven't even gone into detail of trying to count them. I know there's at least 6, but sometimes when you look at these bits of footage, you'll pick out more. You'll see some more slowly moving. So it just seems quite active with other sky phenomena. We'll not call it unexplained phenomena. It could well be satellites, but why all concentrated in that area, as Linny said earlier? What's that? Paul, Linny's just put. I'll leave that one because Lorraine might put that up in a bit, and I'll not bother reading that out. And we'll have a look at some of these. Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Lorraine. Paul, in my footage, it looks like a butterfly, not spinning. You're spot on, mate. It really does. And he summed it up. I said like an angel, but it looks like a butterfly. Picture a butterfly's wings, and it's just moving, not spinning. And I've got the exact same, Ian, in certain sequences of this. So it's just fascinating. I mean, we're probably talking about a man-made, not natural, but man-made phenomena. But it's fascinating that there's a debate about it, and my problems with it, if they are problems, is that it could be seen for several minutes. No, we saw it for 12, and it were probably there as we were walking up the cliff tops with us back to it. So that's not several minutes. Do you know what I mean? And from what I'm told, it's one object. So why did we have this second one?
Yeah, I mean, excuse me. It's interesting, Lee saying that. Why has this not been seen before? If it's a fuel burn off, or is it just a new rocket design? Again, Lee, I don't know enough about SpaceX to comment, but you could argue it's not seen to be seen. Well, you can't really. I was going to say you could argue that it's an anomaly because to produce that effect, it has to be viewed, and the space rocket has to be traveling at a certain angle to your line of sight. But what if you're in Germany? We're in UK.
Yeah,
it should look identical, and it does.
And you're spot on. And what also is interesting, I mean, I can only talk about people in the UK, but Pete says your phone will go mad soon, and my phone was dinging and ringing, and I was getting messages off everybody. Not everybody, lots of people all over the UK that were watching it. And from the descriptions when we were looking at the text or the voicemails they'd sent, it sounds like they were looking at exactly the same thing as us, but they were hundreds and hundreds of miles apart. Now we realise it's up in heavens, don't we? So that's probably why. But
yeah, it could well be. You're right. It could well be. But I think it's definitely worth looking at because it's rare, which for the amount of rocket launches those guys do, and everybody else in the world for that matter, not just SpaceX. There are other people doing launches. I don't know how often NASA are doing stuff these days, and other private companies are doing stuff. But shouldn't we be seeing it more regularly? But again, who knows? It could be something to do with the special fuel he's using that causes it to crystallize in a certain way over a period of time. Who knows? Interesting, but really interesting to see the fallout in the community about it.
Yeah, well, we can pick a few more questions up from this if you like before we move on. I see Jojo's put one on, and what have you? So I don't know. Anybody got any more information on this that they want to share with us, or any thoughts? Jojo says, I'll star that, shall I? I'll do that then. Show. Let's have a look. Could the several satellites be satellites released from the rocket, as that was apparently the mission? Could be, Jojo. But once again, what an incredible coincidence that it just happened when we were looking up at it. And because, yeah, we didn't see anything coming out from it. I've got to say, the one that was traveling in conjunction with it was just pretty constant. But there was a lot of movement around it. What's that? Paul, did it change colour? Now I was looking at it with Sony, and I put it into night shot, so it looked mostly green. Linny and Pete said it looked a mauve colour. So, and you might be able to correct us on that, Linny, if I'm wrong with colour that I thought you said. Yeah, it would be good because that's an interesting one, Andy. Because although we're all agreeing it's most likely the SpaceX, even when you watch the news as late as 15, 20 minutes, well, half an hour ago when I was just watching it, and Look North put a picture up of it. They're still saying that it could have been. People think it was. Nobody's actually saying and nailing the colour to the mast and saying it was. It's all they think it was, and it could have been, and it was most likely.
So he's not. Has anyone checked his Twitter feed to see if
I don't know.
Usually a bit of a smart aleck, and he'll usually respond to stuff like this.
I don't know. Did you see John Paul Bodies there? Mag Sue, good to see you. Natural Ginger, Dave Barker. I just keep doing it with Jojo, Margaret Webster. Sorry about that, Chris.
No,
yeah, it was Violet. Right. Okay. Yeah. So that's interesting. Could have been running on paraffin or something. I don't know what he's been running it on, or chicken manure. I don't know. It's
Elon's special brew.
Elon Musk. Special brew. That's like alcohol soup. That'd probably fuel it. Yeah.
You probably would. It's a secret fuel.
It would do, yeah. You don't want to wake up with an headache after drinking special brew, do you, people? But there you go. So what we on with now then, Chris? We can pick the... Oh, right. Go on then, Chris.
Yeah, Stephen Collin, wouldn't be surprised if Musk was in on all the strange phenomena from cryptids to UFOs. Well,
it'd be interesting to know what they think about all that, Steve, wouldn't it? You know, and I guess we'll never know, but you can bet they've got views on it. I mean,
well, I think they've got more than views on it. Look, these are the most powerful men on earth. They're you know, I mean, the ones that are in the public eye, should I say, the public personas. But you can bet your bottom dollar that them people representing them, the people they're representing, certainly know all about what we're talking about. Yeah, this is, you know, the more I look at this, the more it looks like breakaway civilizations. These guys are all this. You know, I know some of you guys and a lot of people aren't into the hollow earth, inner earth stuff, but you know, the breakaway civilization, whether you believe in whether you think they're going off to space, building cities out there, or going into inner earth and exploring there, that's what these guys are doing. They are not interested in this, you know, what we perceive to be the theatre world around us.
There's so much more, Chris, isn't there? You know, there's so much more that we're not getting. We only live on the skin, the fabric of this huge ball, don't we? You know, and we're just there on the outside shell of it. But
it's the more, honestly, and even in this last 10 years, I would say. So, I mean, I've been doing this quite a while now, but it's become so evident in the last 5 or 6 years now that you cannot, honestly, I'm not even down to local news and local councils, and you can't believe a word you read. You honestly cannot. And I know people that work in some of these in bigger roles and smaller roles they'll agree with you. You cannot believe a word you read. It's like at the top. Christ, what it's like at the top, I don't know.
And Stephen Collins says probably if there's money in it or something else in it for them. And well, that's right. That's what drives. That's why they're in positions they're in. There's very few people in this world do it because they've got a passion for it. Obviously, we've all got to eat. We've all got to sort of survive and sleep comfortable on a night if possible. But there's very, very few people that do things because they've got a passion for it. I mean, look at this last transmission. And pointing question, and I'll not go into some kind of rant, but if you think there's money to be made out of this, people, there isn't. And so because I say that because on Truth Proof, somebody passed a comment which I've left on from other night saying, like, you know, we're making money out of this, they're peddling this SHIT basically and making money from it. And I thought, do you really think that we make money from this? We don't. If I've calculated hours and time I put into it, and I don't want to sound negative, it owes me.
You're a minus. You're a minus millionaire.
I'm a minus. So, but I know that weren't the question, but I can see where Steve were coming from with that. Lorraine put unless there's any more for SpaceX, Lorraine put a question up prior to Stevens. I don't know if you can still see that, Lorraine, can you? I don't want to put you on spot about shadow. Right. If shadow people are able to cause lights to flicker and interfere with electronic systems such as cameras, does this suggest shadow people are electrical in nature? Good point. And I don't know if they can do that, but something affects electrical systems and drains batteries. We'd need examples of shadow beings or shadow type entities being able to do that. We're experiencing shadow type entities where we're doing the research, and we experience power failures or in drained batteries and things. Is that what's responsible? I don't know. What's your views, Chris?
We're electrical beings, and every cell of ours has a certain wattage.
Yeah.
So, you know, if you watch, I don't know if you ever seen that Superhuman Powers documentary that were made a few years ago. There was a guy on there, I think, that could affect electricity and stuff. So, yeah, you know, it's an interesting point.
Well, yeah. On a much smaller scale, my auntie can't wear a watch because it'll either stop or it'll go slow. Something about her body just affects a watch. It won't work. They don't work properly when she wears them. So there's something electrical happening there. I would think. Is it? I would have thought. You know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. This is interesting. Have you seen this, Paul, about the new stuff found under the pyramids? Have you seen any of that stuff?
I've not seen it. I think you mentioned it to me. You or Les were on about it. I think it was you, Chris, the other day. So fill us in on a little bit of this if you've got some information.
Well, it's this Italian research team that have been. Some are arguing they're a little bit vague and a bit super sensational because I think they've got a bit of a track record of being a bit sensationalist with their information. Okay. In the sense that they're probably doing what you might do with a Loch Ness scan, as an example. That they're looking at a shape and then they're exaggerating,
they're turning it into a extinct plesiosaur.
Well, I mean, look, yeah, but they're turning it into I think it's eight columns,
right?
That 2 kilometers down, I think.
Yeah, Les mentioned this last night.
Beneath the pyramid, that further, I suppose, fueling the argument that this is some sort of is it a giant capacitor, which a lot of people think it might be, or an electron collector or something like that. People call it. Is it that? I can't remember the guy's name that does that. Who wrote the book about it being a big power generator? But we're going to get back to the pyramids after when we talk about the Ark of the Covenant. But yeah. I think that it's really interesting. The scans are really interesting. I don't think they needed to exaggerate it the way they did. They're interested enough in and of themselves. I think there's enough information in the scans to say that something's going on down there very interesting. And I don't think it's a big secret to all of us who have been are interested in Egypt or any ancient mystery for that matter, that to say that we all know there's something beneath those pyramids. They weren't built by the Egyptians. They simply weren't. Not
without a lot of assistance. I mean, it's incredible, and that goes for the stone structures that are all over the world, and the preciseness of the cuts and
yeah, you can actually when you look at the pillars and the carvings, no matter, and the statues and the bowls, whenever you look at them, often you can see whoever originally created these and didn't get a chance to finish some of these, they were then finished off by the Egyptians. And the workmanship is nothing like. The laser-like straight edges and perfect engraving is just not there.
People have come up with suggestions for cutting stone, and they'd have done it with sand and sort of copper tools and whatever. Can you imagine how long it would have took to cut them blocks of stone? It'd be incredible. I know with unexplained phenomena people, and we're talking about cutting stone, but it relates back to it. If some other force has done it, some other intelligence has assisted in the making of these things, which is highly possible, isn't it? I mean, each stone is said to weigh not hundreds, but thousands of tons. Is it? I don't know. They're huge, aren't they? Huge blocks of stone.
Yeah, look at the sarcophagus. I think there's 8 or 10 of those giant sarcophagus things. Well, they're not sarcophagus. They're something else. Are they in the Seraphim? I think it is. Right. And they are huge. They don't even know how they got them down there. You've got to get these things down. You've got to build them. Then you've got to get them in there. How are you going to do it?
Are they? It sounds silly. Are they bigger than entrances? So were they there?
I think they are bigger than the entrances. And the entrance to this, I think it's the entrance to the. I think it's called the Seraphim. I can't remember. Seraphim.
Seraphim.
Is that what it's called? The Seraphim. As you walk into this place, allegedly the whole corridor was lit. It's written in the text. I think that in Napoleon documented it when he went, that there were these big spheres that were self-illuminating, that were powered. They don't know how they were powered, and they were all sat on small pillars as you walk down, and it lit all the corridors up, which kind of makes sense because then the question becomes, how did they light this place?
How did they light it? Yeah, yeah.
And
You
there
can't
are
imagine
hints everywhere about it,
done
isn't
it
there?
with oil and go on, Chris.
Did I ever tell you that story about the scans I got given?
Scans,
yeah.
No, tell us.
Yeah, it were like a scene out of a spy movie or something. It were a film I did a long time ago called 2012 An Awakening, it was called. And I think it was about 2008, 2009. And we were looking at the 2012, this big 2012 was meant to be the end of the world and all this, and the main calendar and all that. Anyway, we were covering all angles, and there was one particular guy called Patrick Gerald, and he thought the world was going to end. He was building an underground bunker on this mountain because obviously he believed the flood was coming, sea levels were going to rise, but he'd be safe. So we did this interview, and he'd been to Egypt many times with companies that had ground penetrating, military grade ground penetrating radar. This is like how long ago? It's probably about 17, 18 years ago. So we did his interview, and he's, it was a bit weird, but each to their own. He'd researched it, I hadn't, and he'd been credited with something to do with Einstein's work. He debunked some of Einstein's work and been proven right. So we had a few people that were championing his research, giving him at least some credibility. Anyway, as the interview ended, we're packing away the gear and everything, and he cameraman's just my mate Noel. He's behind packing the bags, and he comes up to me and nudges me. He says, in his broken English, he says, "Some scans." And he said, "I've got some scans." And he gets this disc out. It's all compact. This DVD. Show no one. He's like this with this disc, and I'm just my mate can hear him. My mate's looking at me, the cameraman, going, "What's going on here?" So I didn't know what were going to be on these discs. I just thought, oh, okay, I'll take it home and have it. He said, show no one. They don't exist, these scans. Anyway, took the DVDs on, stuck it in the computer, and he was right. There were 2 scans on there showing football-sized chambers beneath the Giza Plateau. 2 of them. And this were done. And the other thing that I should probably say is that I won't name names, but I know people that in Egypt that have been down chambers 3,000 feet deep
and not found these,
and not found the end, not found the end of these chambers. Right. So I think this information will come out pretty soon.
Yeah. Have you still got the discs then?
I have.
Chris?
It's actually in one of in here. It's in these boxes, although they look tidy, are full of junk, and it will be in one of these because I kept it for that specific reason.
I ask because people will be saying, "Oh, you're going to show us them images." You might not want to, or you might not be able to.
No, I'll dig it out. Honestly, I'm sure they're still in there because that documentary was filmed on DV. Yeah. Digital video tapes, the little tapes. You remember?
I remember, yeah.
Yes, and I've still got all them from the original.
I've got a box full of them with loads of footage on, and I think I used to download them with using firewire cable.
That's right,
firewire port on this computer, maybe. And excuse me,
our age now.
Yeah, I know. But just before we move away from pyramids, when you were talking about the light, there's loads of things to consider, and they were probably vented, but if they were vented, then you'd think, well, then people would realize there's chambers really deep below. Because if they were using conventional fuels, let's say oil or some other type of fuel to light these areas, where did all those fumes go? We've got these huge voids down there that needed illumination. And so if they're using fossil fuels, where are the fumes going to go? Because they couldn't have let them fumes just vent naturally, because then people would have been aware that there's something below. So the questions, I've never even thought about it till this moment. And then you just mentioned the seraphim and things, and I thought, it's so interesting. Sometimes I feel a bit like Columbo.
It's called the seraphim. Sorry, guys, it's called the seraphim. Yeah, sorry, it has come to me.
Right. So do we have, where are we going to go now then, Chris?
What's this question? Zeno.
All right.
Truman Show springs to mind. These structures predate the Anunnaki's arrival. The scaling architecture is impossible without some form of laser printing technology. Why would they hide it? I get to, I mean, we've talked about this on a few shows about the fact that history is hidden. And honestly, even down to the smallest scale, I think everything is hidden.
Yeah.
It's incredible, actually. I think we know very, very little about our history. Even as far back as a few hundred years ago, I think stuff's hidden.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and it's like we've talked about before, it's the domino effect, isn't it? You knock one domino over, game's over.
Yeah. Absolutely. We should get some questions in from DC Production. See, Les Drake is in the house. So good to see you, Les. And Rod, Olgie, Zeno, and Jojo. And yes, great to have support, guys. And any more questions before we move on?
Oh, I didn't see this one. I don't think I've seen this, Stephen. What do Chris and Paul make of the stone that was allegedly found near Roswell with the unusual carvings on it that Giorgio Tsoukalos covered? I don't know about that.
No knowledge of that, Stephen, at all. Sorry, mate. And if people want to enlighten us in chat, well, you obviously, Stephen, you've seen it. Yeah.
I'll tell you what we'll do before we go back to the pyramids. Why don't we go something? Let's have a look at these images that you sent me. Let's have a look at where is it now? Let's go a bit more local. So we'll show you. Can you describe to us what? I'll just put this image up, Paul. Can you describe to people what we're looking at there?
Right. Well, what that is, there's three of them, and I could only find reference to one. And these, I might have pronouncing it wrong. I think they're called miser chords, and these are in Hackness Church. And when myself and Les were making Wolflands, we visited all of these locations that were close to the Forge Valley. And these carvings are in the church. And I think that there's one that actually looks like what you would depict as a Bigfoot. There's a green man. I don't know what you would consider this one to be. It looks like there's leaves around something coming out of his jaw. But these are in churches, and I don't mean every church, but they're dotted around in churches all over Europe, and old churches, and mostly pagan. And this would have been underneath a seat in the church. I can't think of name at seat. It's like a pity seat that's in a church, and these are very old. I think these are 15th century, and they're in Hackness Church. Myself and Les visited Hackness Church 3 or 4 times, hoping to get inside to actually take some more images and get some more information. Inside the church, there is also fragments of an Anglo-Saxon cross, and it's ornately carved. It's really, really a specimen, fragments of the cross, which would have been a lot taller than what we're looking at, and it's about 4 foot off ground. But what's interesting, the church is depicting it as having griffin's feet, which essentially look like canine feet. So we can't see the griffin, so we don't know if it is a griffin. But I thought how fascinating when we're making Wolflands and we're talking to people who've had these experiences with what people would consider werewolf stroke dogman in these areas, and we've got this Anglo-Saxon cross with these canine feet at the bottom of it. So, but it's all speculation. We do realise that, but the miser chords, they're interesting in that they put these things, these pagan objects, in the churches. The Green Man, there's carvings of the Green Man there, and it's fascinating. What was the Green Man? Was he the wood woes? Was he the wild man, the strange cryptid type creature that people see now or claim to see in the forests, not just of North Yorkshire, but all around the world? I think there's a strong possibility that were early man's depiction and interpretation of what people in present day are seeing.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think when I were doing a list, I talked to a few people that talked about the Green Man and about saying exactly that. Yeah. So, like Dragonborn saying that's a Green Man, and yeah, they are prominent on a lot of churches and throughout British history, I suppose you could say. Certainly Christianity as well as paganism as well, I think. Yeah, well,
Dragonborn's a font of knowledge when it comes to paganism, really. That would be my first port of call if I wanted to get a little bit of information about. So I'll probably talk to you in the next few days about these miser chords or miser chords. Well, after somebody's going to correct me with pronunciation. But it's interesting that these places and these objects are in Christian churches, you know, and not just in the UK, I mean, all over Europe.
Yeah, and David Hunt saying, I think Bigfoot was here before us, and we're here, and we are from them, because if we didn't have houses and claws and fire, we would die. But Bigfoot is made perfectly for Earth survival. Now, that comes back to the old flesh and blood paranormal angle, doesn't it? I mean, it's going to rage.
And I don't know where you are on that, David, and I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer. So when I say this, I don't mean I'm right, but it still doesn't explain the witnesses when they talk about seeing these things, and I sound like a broken record, being on a conveyor belt, moving just as though they're floating, looking and seeing self-illuminating eyes. There's lots of aspects, seeing them pass a tree and not coming out other side of it, and the tree's only this wide and this thing's immense. Unless they've somehow got some kind of cloaking ability. Look at an octopus. Do you know what I mean? Or they can sort of become the environment almost, can't they? They can sort of blend into it. Who's to say that these things, as that guy's just said, aren't the masters of illusion?
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, I suppose you could argue that we're spirits that inhabit matter now. If you look at it like that. So what's to say that they can't do both simultaneously? I mean, I'll let you know. Look, you could argue, and people will argue, and there's probably people in the chat that do astral travel. So what they're doing essentially the same thing. To some degree.
You make a really good point, because you get people on live streams on just talking to you face to face who claim that they're going to have out of body experiences and travel. So who's to say these aren't the supreme people or beings that can do that and have developed that to such a degree that it appears like magic to us? I think that's a good possibility. I see Nicky Griffiths. I think Jeremy's in. Jeremy comes on cliff tops. He walks like a penguin. He'll not mind me saying that, but he does. He just walks. I'm sorry for it's an in joke, this guy. So everybody's thinking, what's he on about? But I've just had to say it because he'll be laughing his head off now. So there you go. And
if he is the penguin, you better be careful what you say.
I've got to be. Yeah, I've got to be. Yeah.
Stephen Collin, it was on Ancient Aliens. A guy found it near the crash site. They sent it to be analysed, and it was not possible to fake the carving. Also, later on, it was discovered to be a crop circle in Wiltshire. It's ringing a bell, this now.
So Stephen's saying that the carving that was found in Roswell was depicted in a crop circle in Wiltshire. Is that what you're saying, Stephen? I'm tipping it is. We touched on crop circles other night on Truth Proof, and what do people think? I saw one that I believe was genuine simply because no one else got to see it. I knew Farmer, and I were allowed to go see it as long as I didn't turn it into a thoroughfare, and that was just a perfectly formed circle out in the middle of nowhere that nobody had seen unless you were in an aircraft. So, but what about the ones, Chris? What about the ones that are I don't know, the DNA and other things that are depicted in the footprint, in the crop circle, and images of Jesus and other things? Do you think they're real? Do you think they're genuine?
Excuse me. I've just found this stone, so I'm just going to put this up so we can have a look at it. Because if this is the one, I've got this right. So back in there, let's see if we can show it. Where are you, Stone?
A lot quicker than me at finding these things, people. I'd have had to go off air, and I'll see you in half an hour.
So is that it? It came up Stone, Ancient Aliens, Giorgio, so it might not be it, but...
is that the stone? Just give us a thumbs up if it is. Who was it that asked it? Was Stephen, weren't it? Yeah, Stephen Collin. Oh, did you see Jeremy Brooks just come back with a sarcastic wah, wah, wah. And... that's the penguin, obviously.
That's it. Yeah, that's it. So let's have a look at it. So what am I looking at? Are they meant to? I mean, I can't tell from here because it's a pretty.
It's like the moon. It looks like the sun and the moon on the right-hand side. Maybe.
Or I don't know what that is. What did he say it is? Out of interest, Stephen.
No idea.
I'm either in death out of Stephen.
Well, Stephen's just said yes. That's it, Chris. So, sun on the moon, Nicky Griffiths says, and
What is it? Just trying to find out what they're saying it is. Cryptic design. I don't know.
I think somebody in chat's going to tell us, Chris, so we've no need to worry too much about that. We'll
yeah, well, well, I'll tell you, just to end that little bit that we were talking about, the Green Man. You know, you and I are actually going to be doing a short documentary on the British Bigfoot soon for our YouTube for Last Transmission, aren't we? Soon, so
yeah, absolutely.
We're going to talk about it a bit more. We'll feature a little bit of this, but I just find it's still, you know, after all this time, and it's a few years since I did Elusive, and I know you're doing Wolflands too now, but it's still bizarre, isn't it? Because we should probably try and get Charmaine Fraser on here.
Yeah.
Because she's, she's a witness that, the British Bigfoot witness, seen it twice. I think she's really solid witness. Met her, Lorraine met her in Scotland when we went to interviewing her. It was a really good interview, and I came away thinking, I've got this wrong. Is the room up there? Could it be?
So Charmaine's of the firm belief that this is established and managing to survive up there undetected.
I don't know whether she says that, but she just says, I'm certain of what I saw. So I don't think she makes a claim either way. She just says, I know what I saw. And of course, she then makes strong arguments as to the climate in parts of Scotland that are identical to parts of North America and some parts of Canada. Is it temperate rainforest, did they call it?
Yeah.
In fact, they've just said that, like Winter Hill, they've just said that a place near Winter Hill is temperate rainforest environment as well. That's fascinating. Which is a bit weird.
Yeah.
There's so much to delve into, isn't there, with these subjects?
What you've just said there, it should be a tick for anybody interested in the phenomenon to do a bit of research on temperate rainforests in the UK, or the potential for some areas to be temperate rainforests, because then we can do our cryptid scene there. Do you know what I mean? Because there could be, like you've just said, there could be a link. All of those things are worth researching. That's brilliant.
It's a good point, that, mate. Yeah, actually, good point.
But do you know? So there's tick a few boxes for people if you want to come back to us with it and help us with that. Your input would be more than welcomed. And I don't think you met Robbie Shankland, did you? Rob Shankland. I don't think you did.
We were due to Andy McGrath, because I was working with Andy McGrath at the time, and I think Andy had been in touch with him, and then sadly he passed away, didn't he?
Robbie, I've got all Rob's research, everything. It's a strange story, and I'll just dwell on it briefly. When I were in my early 20s, this guy who were a crofter came down to Doncaster, left his brother Angus and his mum, and just thought he were going to make a living in the area of South Yorkshire. And he met me, and we used to train together. So all them years passed, and then about 12 years ago, I get a message out at Blue. He'd been to a Scottish UFO conference. Paul Sinclair, I used to come and have me tea with, and he knew my little girl. He knew my girls when they were little and everything. And I thought, well, what a small world, and it was. So we struck up this relationship again. We'd always been great friends, and then unfortunately, Robbie passed away. Like I were at his funeral, and he's given me some locations up there where he firmly believed these things were, and he sent pictures of little piles of rocks, almost like rock art, a large rock, and then about 6 on top of one another, like gifting places on tree stumps. I knew this guy. He was pretty secular. He'd never married, still lived at home, did his own thing. He was like a giant of a man. He's not no timid man or anything. And it come as a big shock when he passed away. And he'd got all this research in these areas up there. So you were talking about temperate rainforests. It'd be interesting to find out if the locations that Robbie's highlighted to me are potentially temperate rainforests as well.
Mike the Saber Welshman, there's a temperate rainforest here in Wales. Can't be exactly sure where it is, but I think it's here in South Wales. Yeah, I think they're a little bit more common than we think. But it's an interesting thing, and all the years I've been looking into this, I've never heard, other than Charmaine Fraser mentioning that.
I think it's a little nugget of information there that we could all work on if we're interested in cryptid subject. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I sometimes think that it's gone off the boil a little bit. I mean, I know there's still some researchers out there doing it, and a lot of the common threads, like the waterways and railway lines and golf courses and this kind of thing, there's still, that I get the feeling that most people think most boxes have been ticked, but there's always another box to tick, isn't there? There's always more correlations to be made.
Well, yeah, and as fast as you think you've sussed it out and you know what's happening, and something comes up to surprise you, it's just fascinating. It's what drives me, and it's what makes me want to keep getting out there and talking to people. I'll just briefly touch on it. I spoke to an elderly lady last week, and I received this incredible report from North Yorkshire from 1980, and I said it on Truth Proof live stream. And to the guy who said, I'm sick of this because he touches on things and then never tells us, I'm sorry about that. I've got to find out whether I can talk about it in detail. But I don't think there's a researcher, if that's what I am, in UK who shares as much information as what I do. So you can do one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Runes and Pike Beast, Lee Roscoe. Hi, Lee. Did you see the crop circle 1991 with the design on the land and metal? The metal detectors found a copper plate with the same design to match it. No, I didn't.
No.
I mean, Age, I think, Paul, I think you've said it. I mean, you might have said it on Truth Proof. I think you've said it on here as well, that between us, we should certainly speak to someone who's an expert in these crop circles.
Crop circles, absolutely.
Yeah, it is interesting.
It would be great. And so we'll throw it out there to the 150 people in chat. If you know anybody, if you've got connection to somebody who's involved in the crop circle and crop circle research, point them in our direction, and we'd love to talk to them. If they only want to come on for an hour, that's good enough for us. It would be great.
Debbie Shaw. Hi, Debbie. Chris, have you heard about the Neolithic henge that has recently been found in Aspel? No, I haven't. No, I'll look into that because it's obviously not far from me, Wigan. I don't know if you can tell what accent like. You might be able to tell. It's not that far away. I think Lee Roscoe's from Wigan. You can tell.
Oh, he is. Yeah, you can tell he is. But I don't know. But there you go, Lee.
What's he always say?
Hornsey Watchers. Well, that's a good one. Hornsey Watchers. Sorry, Lee. I just saw it because it's a few miles from where I live. So there's new people for chat. Welcome.
Stephen saying, as Tina Turner said, simply best ball. And Chris, thank you very much, Stephen. Much appreciated.
And I see Mick Park saying, good to see you, Mick.
Hi, Mick.
And, good to see you, Mick. And absolutely interested in all aspects of Unexplained. Mick, we have some great chats about all things strange and unusual.
Oh, we could get Mick on, Mick knows all sorts about everything.
Absolutely, yeah. We'll get Mick talking about John Dee and other things. It'd be good to have a chat with him.
Andy Rollins. Hi, Andy. What are your thoughts on the Berwyn? This is an interesting case. Berwyn Mountain UFO case. Military were allegedly on the ground within hours of the report, and similarities with the Sheffield incident.
It's a great case, isn't it? Are we talking 1974, Andy? I think we are. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. And weren't it the nurse Pat Evans and her daughter who were driving, and they saw there wasn't. I think meteorological survey showed that there were an earthquake or a small ground tremor that night, so they kind of put everything down to that. But she were driving. Don't ask me where she were driving to, but I think she'd got a daughter with her, and there's a huge glowing. What's a sphere? Because that turns it into an object. There was a huge glow on the side of the mountain. And bear in mind, with Wales, we're not talking about Mount Everest, but on the side of the mountain. And there's been lots of things. I don't know whether it's been to muddy the waters or distort things over the years. I think another guy we ought to get on was Scott Felton, because he'd done a lot of work on Berwyn Mountains UFO.
I was just about to ask you. I couldn't remember his name, so it's Scott Felton, isn't it? Because there are a couple of really good documentaries on YouTube about this, and I think if it is Scott, he's done loads of research on this, so he might be the guy.
Yeah, I think and I'm not even sure. I'm probably his friend on Facebook. Not spoke to him for a few years, but I'll reach out to him and see if we can get Scott Felton on to revive Berwyn Mountains, guys. If that's what you want, just put your thumbs up, and we'll see if we can sort that.
Yeah, and going back, mate, you've just reminded me that we need to get Penturk sorted, don't
Cass
we?
Clark, yeah, that would be good.
We need to sort that interview out, because I think it's a really interesting. No matter what you think, I think there's more. There's somewhat in that, I think.
It's a great case. She's done loads and loads of good work on it, and she's had a lot of barriers, and a lot of people have sort of put up a fight against it, and she's stood her ground, and she's still come out fighting. So yeah, let's get Kaz Clark on and see whether she can shed a bit more light onto the Penturk incident. She might have uncovered more information since we had her on Truth Proof, So there's a good chance that she has. Incidentally, on Thursday, myself and Les will be talking to Steve Bassett. So I'll get that posted up tomorrow. But that's my little plug for
Steve Bassett's been around a long time. He'll have lots to say.
And I'm just looking, got to give just one more name shout here. We've got Rog Magsu, but there's Alf Hooker in the chat, and he's a great friend. And he's probably had one of the most incredible experiences that anybody's going to ever have, cryptid related, and that's all I'll say. Blew me away, that guy's story, more than anybody's that I've ever heard. So
the invitation's here if you want to come on and talk about it.
I've never heard anything told with such emotion as what that guy shared with me. Well, I've got to say it, and shared with us, myself and Les.
Yeah, well, these are the how many of these encounters are there, man? As you know, you've taken the one recently that you took with a lady that you interviewed just recently is amazing. So, yeah, and there's thousands and thousands of them out there now still.
Well, do you know, I need to find out how much I'm allowed to talk about that case. Because it's from 1980. The lady's now in her 80s, and she's told me that she's only told her husband and her parents when it happened that night. She's told a friend of hers, who's a good friend of mine, a police officer, but even he doesn't know what she's seen. So I don't want to go into too much detail, and that's the reason. So for the rather smart remarking person in the comments saying Paul's talked about this and it makes me sick kind of thing because he never told us. There's reasons I'm not telling her. I'm not going to betray somebody's confidence. She's told me, and there will be a time to tell it, and it might be next week. If I'll see if I can get the green light. But I will tell you something. This lady said they'd never left. Little sweet talking elderly lady. They've never left since she saw them. And I don't mean the visitor every night, but they've never left. When I was sat in her room and I sat with her for well over 2 hours, no recordings, just talking. She'd written it all up for me, done me a little drawing. And when I sat in her room talking about this, saw a little white light, tiny white light. And I know what I saw. I saw it. And she said to me, "You've seen it, haven't you?" I said, "Yes." She said, "They've never left." And I saw there were a little white light in her room. It just appeared, just disappeared. It quite surprised me. You can take it with a pinch of salt, guys. If you don't believe it, I'm not bothered because I know what I saw. So I'm not going to deny what I saw. So that was that.
Do you think? I mean, look, I can guarantee you, if I went, I wouldn't have seen that. But do you think because of your experiences, because look, that's not the first time that's happened to you. It's happened on a number of occasions that you've seen something. We'll say,
yeah,
something.
Something, yeah. Well, maybe, but she's sat on this story, and I, if I'm not careful, I'll give it all away. But she told me that she was being allowed to tell me, and I've got to give her a different name, which I'm going to do, obviously. But the name's relevant. She says because when I've gone, it'll all make sense. So it's all a bit cryptic, not cryptid. So let's move on, right, lads? When is the Humminbee film happening? Well, I'm talking about Humminbee, Mick, at the Awakening conference on May the 17th. I've recently as last week, I interviewed Andrew's sons, David and Nick. Just little sound bites for the talk that I'm going to be doing at the Awakening. But when you hear Nick talking about these coins just appearing out of the air, he said his words, and I do remember dates and words, and he said it were a bit like, what can I say, a bit like poltergeist, when the void opens up and then something appears. He says, well, there were no void. Coins just dropped out of air. And even lads, even his sons experienced it. So, I don't say it lightly when I say that Hummingbee is the greatest UFO event never told. But it's not just UFOs; it's everything. There were a build up to it before UFOs, and then it just stopped after that night. So when is it? Oh, it's gone now, Mick. But when is it going to be? I don't know. It's how long's a piece of string? But it's got to be done.
Yeah, it's a great case. As the other one, the one on the beach, Paul. What's the name of it? I always forget. Begins with a W.
Woolsthorpe. And interestingly, before we address Tom's question, the Woolsthorpe incident, which was September 15, 2009, when I submitted freedom information requests, the information that I got back, the paperwork that I got back, was exactly the same as Kaz Clark's for Penturk. All detonations, all bullets, all shots fired were all dummy rounds, and just all same terminology. It's just a standard thing that they throw out, I think. But obviously, when we're talking about a suspected UFO arrival landing, they must have something prepared for that, because there were no shots fired, there were no simulated explosions, nobody heard any of that. But it were all in with that bump, and it was same for Kaz Clark. So it just about same. It was same document, bit looks of it. But anyway,
what's this? Tom Waters. Hi, Tom. Have either of you seen the film Richard D. Hall made about the underground pyramid he researched in Wales? No, I haven't seen that. And I have seen, to be honest, I have seen most of Richard's stuff, certainly the UFO stuff. So I've missed this one. Is this something recent, Tom?
I'm not sure he's doing much at the moment, but no, so I've missed it. So I don't know.
Yeah, I missed that.
He did a good one with that guy from East Yorkshire on World's UFOs once, you know.
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of his name. Oh, it's Paul something or other. Yeah, go on.
Right then. Right. So Rod, Chris, yeah, there's Rod in that picture. Chris,
I love that thumbnail every time I see it. It's brilliant.
It is a good one.
It looks a bit like Jeremy. Well, that's a swan, not a penguin, but you know.
Chris, have you ever experienced anything paranormal? Well, you could call it paranormal, I suppose. I don't know what it was. I think I've told this tale before, but when I came back from David Icke's, that ball of light appeared in the living room. It was about tennis ball size. It just appeared for a couple of seconds in the living room. Now, that's probably one of the weirdest things I've seen, and I did the same. I do the same now with that as I do with the UFO I saw over Winter Hill that time years ago. I look back on it now, and even though I know I saw it and I know it happened,
you're questioning
I still
it.
think, yeah, I'm still questioning it. Did I see it, or was it? I'm trying to find an excuse. I know I might.
Do you question what you saw at Ben? Oh, Deb's got to go. See you later. Thanks for support, Deb. See you later.
Thanks, Deb.
And do you question what you saw at Bempton? Because
no, I don't.
That night.
Yeah, well, with that, I think because it was something that obviously seen before, and I've seen them since when I've been back, and a lot of people have seen them, and like you say, numerous witnesses and that. The stuff here when I was making the reptilian film, I've said it before, that stuff happened with my daughter and stuff like that in her room, and she said things. She was 3-year-old about weird things that happened and that were in the room. My wife says that thing stands next to me in bedroom, and I keep saying, "Why aren't you doing anything about it?" She says, "I don't want to do with it." Oh. So whatever that thing is, standing in the bedroom.
Do you think then, Chris, it's almost like a question here. Do you think that then, when you're looking into these things, maybe you don't get too close, but maybe because you're concentrating on it, it becomes aware of you, and then it comes into your life. It's interacting with you to some degree.
So Lorenzo and I see it quite a lot. Yeah,
I see that. Yeah.
Do you know, Paul? I think I told you when I was ill. When was it? Do you remember me telling you that? That I thought I saw it. Yeah,
you do. Yeah, you did. Sorry, you did.
And it was there. I saw it. And that's the one I get now. And now I'm trying to find an excuse. Well, we're hallucinating. Then we're at. Did that?
But isn't that interesting? Sorry, Chris, I'm cutting you off. Go on. You think what?
No, I just wonder whether it's the mindset that you're in, or a lot of times when probably like everybody out there, I think the audience watching this is probably split down the middle. I'll be surprised. When I go to bed, my head's turning constantly. It's turning with this subject mainly, and work. but mainly the subject. And if obviously life as well that gets in the way, family stuff or whatever. But it very rarely stops my mind. And on that occasion, because I weren't so good, and I don't think I were in that mindset, and I happened to see whatever this thing was standing there.
Yeah,
but it was right over me, like, sort of thing.
And when I said sorry, Chris, and cut through your words, I were actually going to ask that. But my kind of question would have been, and not just to Chris Turner, but to everybody in chat, what do you think ignites the phenomena? Now, and I don't mean a random UFO sighting when you're on a dark road or when you're walking somewhere and something happens. What for you do you believe ignites the phenomena? Chris has just said he were ill. Other people think it's not think, but maybe we can correlate it to extreme trauma, bereavement, or other things. The phenomena seems attracted to it. Is it attracted to it then, or is it our mind, as Chris has just said, that's just on a slightly different thought process and kicking out a different vibe, and that's why we can access it? I'll just throw it out to you guys and see what you think. And what do you think, Chris? What ignites?
Well, we are antennas, aren't we? So we do tune into things, and I think, given everything that's going on with the way string theory and physics, the way tables are turning, everything's changing really quick now. Science is dismissing all the things it thought it knew, which is what science was supposed to do in the first place before it got corrupted, like everything else. But Lorraine's saying that this thing. Someone told me, a really good friend of mine, Alice, who does quite a lot of praying for me. He says this thing's sent to watch over me. That's what he says. That's
kind of feeling I got when you were talking about it, because you were at a low and you saw it, and yeah, that kind of makes sense to me. But I could be wrong.
I don't know. I think there's so much. Probably like you, man, especially with your experiences. I've been in this game long enough to know that I don't dismiss anything. Anything's possible. I really do. No matter what we think we know, we really don't. We know very little. And just need to just say we've got our moderator and other moderator, Alison. Good to see you, Alison. We've got another name we've got John Paul Body were in earlier. Had a brilliant sighting, John. Great meeting up with you. Natural Ginger. Some names that I've not seen before. So everybody that's come to channel tonight, if you've not been here before and you're enjoying what you're listening to, please consider subscribing, press a like, and we'd appreciate it. It's it's all appreciated. Thank you. Stephen's saying that was a good one Richard D. Hall did on the Second World War story up north, where a policeman killed an alien with a coal shovel.
Yeah, I remember that. And we ought to have Al Carter on. Al would know something about that. I think you've met Al, Chris.
I've met Al, yeah.
He's as good a researcher as anybody, but just keeps it all quiet. He don't vocalize about it. I'd love to get him on talking about things. But yeah, I think that this guy came across allegedly a grey alien and hit it with a coal shovel and killed it. It's no good as trying to elaborate any more on that. It's years since I watched what he'd done on it and sort of did any reading about it. So there'll be people, if I start talking about it, I'm going to get it wrong. So if it's something you want to hear about, we can do a bit of digging on that one for a future last transmission.
Stephen's saying that from my point of view, a lot of bereavement over a few months. Is Stephen saying there that
it ignites it? It
ignites it. Yeah,
I think it's our emotions, Stephen, that fuel what's happening, and they do seem to like trauma and fear, and whether. Excuse me. Do you know, has anybody considered that these things, or some of these things, might not even realize that it's fear that we're sort of exhibiting, and by presenting to us and heightening that fear, which is what happens in a lot of instances, they might just think they're communicating. It might not even realize that it's causing extreme stress. I don't know. I think we've just got to throw all those hooks out and just hope somebody in chat, somebody listening to this afterwards, comes up with a little bit of a one-liner or a little paragraph that links up what we're talking about and makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, there's so much to it, isn't there? About what gets me thinking about especially what happened to you as well, because you must have think about this a lot. So they visit on a number of occasions. They come. They're doing something. They want something from you, right? there's a number of questions about what that is that they want. So that's the first question. The other question is that if, like we think, or like science is now beginning to think, that this is somewhat of a holographic reality, so it's a programmed, if you like, reality that we are in and existing in, it makes you wonder what these things are. Are these things a part of the program? Have they hacked into the program, into our reality, rather?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean by that? Because
or is
Yeah,
our
go on.
life mapped out and they're just part of the process that we're going to encounter these things? You know, everything seems too perfect in some respects. Like you touched on my experiences, and it stopped for me about 14 years old. Literally stopped. Very, very few cameos of events, as how I worded it in Night People, that took place until we moved to this property here, and then it literally just started again. And you know, it literally started again, and there were no like easing into it. It started, and that just seems too convenient, you know, to get this house, which had previously been used by people for at best spiritualism, but looking at the images that were on walls in some bedrooms upstairs, and as I've said before, when you lifted floorboards up, there'd be Lord's Prayer there, where, you know, where wiring would be. You'd lift floorboards up to do wiring and check things, and there'd be St. Christopher's and all over the place. So we not only that, but we'd moved into a house that were pretty busy, pretty busy with strange phenomena.
It is odd. I would love to know. I'd also love to know how. We've talked about this before. It's really interesting. How do they know about these crashes? You know, and you get that argument. Well, they know about the crashes because they're causing them. Do you know what I mean? It's always they're there instantly. The Men in Black, if you want to call them that, these agencies, and they're not always like supernatural. These Men in Black, they're just agents, but they're there.
Do you think, though, Chris, that the crashes? I mean, let's assume that in some instances, these objects have traversed vast distances across the universe, or they've come from inner Earth, or they've come from below oceans. Whatever they are, they've got their capabilities of these objects are far better than anything we've manufactured, yet they crash. Do you think sometimes if these things have crashed, do you think it's just to lay a little bit of technology for us and to advance our advances as a species?
Some people say that, but I think you can find an argument against that. I think, well, look, you can find an argument for any of this stuff.
Absolutely. I'm just saying, why would they crash? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's all contradictory, isn't it?
Why crash?
I agreed. I mean, the crash thing is interesting, especially when you consider that allegedly these beings can time travel and know everything that's about to happen. Certainly about us, anyway. So they can tune into that, but they can't tune in to 10 minutes ahead of time when this Earth agency is going to shoot them down and kill them all or capture them all.
You've just encapsulated it. That's spot on. That is a good way of looking at it, because like you've just said, if they can travel into the future, they'll have seen all the potentials that unless I don't know.
From what I understand, everything's malleable, so perhaps they do the best to foresee these things, and that you could argue that these agencies are aware of that and they're doing things to make that I don't know, to displace that or to interrupt it working. You know, they could be constantly. Look, when you bring into this, look, I don't know what you guys out there think. I'd be interested to know in the comments what you think about the psionics groups and all the rest of it, and whether they're responsible for bringing this craft in, which allegedly they're saying that they, peacefully make contact, bring the craft in, and then the things are shot down, or they're even steered by these groups that literally take over the craft. Now, I have come across that kind of stuff when I was doing the reptilian mind lab stuff, that they would, that the military would abduct these humans that had these experiences with these various, whatever these things are, and they would, find out, basically hypnotize them, deprogram them, put alters in them on some occasions to find out what they knew, and they realized that these humans were able to enter these craft something within the blueprint, DNA resonance, whatever that is. I hear that term thrown about quite a lot, but
yeah,
it's some sort of like key to get into these crafts somehow. A genetic connection to it, an organic connection to it. Interesting.
It's fascinating. And you just talked on military abductions, and I struggle with that. And I don't think you do as much as me, but I struggle with it. That we've got some kind of technology that where the military can actually abduct people from their homes. And I don't mean just come and break into your house and take you away in the middle of the night. It's almost as though they're just transporting you from your home, and there's military abductions. If that's the case, why, and people know what I'm going to say because I've said it before, why aren't they eradicating all these problems in the world? If you've got that technology where you can actually appear in somebody's home and take somebody out of it, then why aren't you eradicating the problem people in the world? That's
they are. They're just our problem people and not their problem people. They're like the chaos suits whatever it is that they're doing. Point. It's very similar to a small analogy would be fossil fuels. Everybody anyone that looks into this subject knows that we don't need them anymore. Everybody knows we've not needed them for 100 years, minimum 100 years. But yet we're still playing this silly game. And, it could end, no matter what you think about these African towns and villages with no water, the idea that that's still going on now is absolute. It's just crazy, isn't it? In this day and age, that's still going on. And that's on I suppose you could say that's quite an extreme, but just generally, there's no need for us to be living like this. There's just no need for it at all. Old women dying in their houses of freezing it over winter. It's just madness, isn't it? But
absolutely, yeah.
Anyway, rant over.
Let's jump on to unexplained phenomena. So where are we? Rivington Pike. Does that open another part of the brain on the death side of it? I'm not sure where we're going with that question, to be honest.
Well, it's interesting because another person that we should speak to is I'd love to have someone on with near-death experiences. Some guy that's experienced that. There's quite a few of them out there now that specialise in that because it's tied in, isn't it?
A big book out today. In fact, I was going to reach out to him for Truth Proof. Come on, Peake. You've done some work with him. Anthony Peake, yeah. I think he's got a bit of not a lot of knowledge of that, hasn't he?
As far as I know, he has. Yeah, I'm not. He's a very intelligent guy. Anthony knows a lot. Knows a lot. Might be somebody to reach out to. So, where we're going now? Then I saw a question from John Paul Bodyon about his experiences, and I talked to John a few weeks ago, and he's seen. Right, let's have a look. Hi, Chris and Paul. My experience at 14 seemed to happen at a time when I needed it in response to why the phenomenon presents itself. Paul knows what I mean. I don't know how deep you want me to go with that, John, but basically, John saw some almost semi-transparent beings, creatures, literally on the outskirts of town in Bridlington. He no longer lives in Bridlington. He came through last week because we've been talking for a few years, and we spent a morning talking about these things, and I visited where he'd seen them, and these things had piercing blue eyes. You might not, I'll throw it out there, John, but I don't mean that I want you to come on because you might not feel comfortable coming on and talking about it. But if you want to come on and talk about it, you can, because you certainly really got my interest. It's a really interesting story. And basically, John, prior to seeing these beings, had been very timid. Very, very timid kind of young man at 14 years old. And he came to the conclusion that he'd got to stop this and get out of it and kind of embrace the world and not get bullied and just become who he's meant to be. And one night he decided, for some reason, he doesn't really understand himself, I think, John. You went to this park in between the old town of Bridlington and Well Lane. It's an old park and some big mature trees in it, and saw these beings. Didn't know we were going to see them. That's interesting. And they're in the tree. They're in a big tree. So it's fascinating. It's a fascinating story. So I'm going to get people saying to me, he's told half a story again. I can't tell the full story because John sat in chat and John might want to tell the story, and because it's fascinating. But what do we come away with? It was changed after that experience.
Didn't become a bad person, but he was changed for the better. A lot more confident, a lot more willing to step in if he saw anyone in any kind of trouble, any kind of bullying. Instead of being the person who was bullied, he would stick up for people who were bullied. It changed him, it transformed him and turned him into the person he is today. He firmly believes that now. And he's not an old man, but he's not a teenager or in his 20s anymore. So brilliant talking to that guy, and I look forward to spending some time with him again.
Oh, sounds great. Sounds like a really fascinating story.
Yeah, absolutely. So, where we're going now? Let's have a look. Go on, Chris.
Fortune, we know being open-minded and having a welcoming mentality can help promote interactions, but has anyone tried going out with a really angry attitude just to see if that's heightened emotion triggers?
Would we be faking it if we went out with an angry attitude, Fortune? If we went out with an angry attitude, sometimes if you're angry, you don't really know you're going to get angry, do you? It just kind of happens. But that might be worth noting if you go to one of these locations, you're in a foul mood because something's happened. It does seem to like misery. Our experience up on the cliff tops, it likes misery. It's, for the most part, whatever is presenting up there, I don't think is very nice.
Well, it's interesting. It's a lot of ufology and, it's paranormal, I suppose you might call it, poltergeist or ghost haunting research. Generally angry people, in my experience, sometimes have bad experiences with this phenomena, sometimes opening doorways or have attachments. Certainly when I interviewed Paula Green and she was talking about one of her ex-partners, one time she looked at him and she could see these attached. She took a photograph of him on this camera he'd bought her, and she looked at the picture quickly and she could see the attachments on this guy. And she showed him the picture and he was denying. I think he threw camera, so he didn't want to see it. So I don't know. And a lot of these energy workers absolutely are 100% certain that that's what they're doing. They're clearing these energies, negative energies, by and they're trained to do this. How they're doing it, I don't know, but maybe there's something in it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what's interesting is Paula Green, and I know you've interviewed her, and we've had her on Truth Proof, and she doesn't openly go trying to get on podcasts and things, and I've probably only been on an handful, but her honesty shines through. She speaks from heart, and what she says she means, sort of warts and all. And I'll tell you what's interesting. Paula Green had a UFO experience whilst in East Yorkshire, and she had it at a place called Graffito Farm. So if anybody wants to Google Graffito Farm, it's on the Hummonby Road, and there's a pull-in at the side of the farm. That's the pull-in where the military roadblock was set up, we believe, during the Hummonby incident in 1998, that runs parallel with that farm where she had her UFO experience, probably Paula's experience with her friend when they were camping in the field that's connected to the farm, or in probably 2021. And I think the film crew came through and they've done a documentary or included it in a documentary, because I was asked if I wanted to be involved in it, and I didn't want to do it. So yeah, interesting that we, once again, location is key. We've got strange things happening.
Yeah, her case is, I think it's an amazing case. Down to the bird that she befriended, that little bird that she used to talk to as a kid, that would tell her to do things and teach her things, and then that fascinating thing she told me in that interview about the greys and the black and the eyes and what, and what they are. Yeah, they're sort of like a 360 viewing sort of device that they use, amongst other things. That
were fascinating, wasn't it? So they could remove that, couldn't they?
Yeah, well, she put it on. So they let her put it on, and she could see like all around her, like a
that's like crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what's Dave Barker saying? Do you think we're all looking for something bigger than us to make sense of our own mortality? We could be unknowingly, Dave, because none of us know what will be before us or what's going to be after us, do we? As in individuals. So, I don't know if we're doing it to make sense of our own mortality, though. I really don't know. Somebody might in chat. I don't know what you'll think.
Well, I just think it appears to me that it's not a new statement by any stretch. A lot of people just said, with the advancement of some technology, we are drifting away from our natural state, aren't we? We're even down to, I think it was you the other night, you mentioned plant medicine and stuff like that. That's, those things are here. They're nature's cures, the nature's medicine, the things that are really, especially with some of the receptors that we've got in our body. I won't say the word, but a lot of people know those kind of receptors I'm talking about. That, those substances are for our use. We certainly shouldn't be cramming hundreds and hundreds of pills down our neck from entities that we don't trust. Let's say that.
Absolutely. Yeah. You got to. It's all a bit sort of cloak and dagger when we talk about things like this, because you just got to be so careful, aren't you? Because certain bodies within the establishment don't like you talking about them, and it's not a secret. There's certain keywords and things that you just can't mention for YouTube or any sort of chat.
Yeah, and also look, it's not what we're about really. It's there are shows to watch and listen to if you want to get into that. Look, and I find that stuff interesting. I'm into it for a long time, but what I've learned is that if you concentrate too much on that stuff, it'll drag you down. So move, try and move past it. Be aware of it, but just move past it if you can. That's my experience. Anyway.
Do you want to jump away from this and talk about what you were on about the Ark of the Covenant earlier to me, weren't you? Or
yes.
Do you want to stay where we are tonight?
Go on, we'll get this question done and then we'll get back onto that. We've got plenty of time, haven't we? Zeno, could we be dealing with a single artificial consciousness? Is it terraforming us into technology through gifts and is waiting for us to evolve a hive mind for the takeover? AI will remove us. I mean, you've touched on this and we've talked about it before this, haven't we?
Yeah. And do you know, Zeno, we've asked the question, is it one Godhead? And I don't mean it religiously, but that just seems to sum it up, that's presenting as many things, or is it many things that are all interacting with us? I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer, but I don't know. Zeno's thrown that out there, and I suppose I've just added a little bit to it. But what do you guys think in chat? Like I said, there isn't a right or a wrong answer. I tend to think that we could be dealing with one entity, one thing, one all-knowing thing. Almost, the Matrix. There's just some hub at the center of it all that's not necessarily directing, but just giving us what we want. It's almost like coincidence when we think of something and it happens. I'm not saying it's magical that it appears, but it's too convenient. And we're getting what we want. If we're go out there looking for UFOs, don't mean we're going to see them, but we gravitate to that. Like attracts like. Is that any of that making sense, people? It might not be. It's my sort of rough way of sort of trying to sum up what Zeno's just said.
Yeah, look, it's one of them. You can go around in circles with this, can't we? We can go around in. I think this is a podcast on its own, but I think if you look at what the ancients said, they called some of the ancient cultures called them this iconic force that was technological in nature, but everything we are not by nature, if you like, and they're the ones that allegedly destroyed these ancient cities. I don't know whether you guys believe in Atlantis or. And it doesn't need to be Atlantis, does it? It needs to be a culture, a gigantic culture or civilization from the past that allegedly these beings, these things infiltrated and destroyed. And,
I'm just looking in. There's not a question as such, but because it's in small text. But AI will destroy us. Natural Ginger says, and it's funny that she said that though, Chris, because I talked about going to speak to the old lady last week and spent several hours with her. And here's someone who doesn't use the internet and is not tech savvy, but she was adamant that we should stay away from AI. And to the point where I were believing that she'd been given this as a message, that AI, not necessarily the words will destroy us, but that's going to be our downfall kind of thing. And it's only just come into my mind then when I saw that Natural Ginger just say that, and I thought, yeah, well, it's funny that because this lady did say that last week.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, there are experts that are looking at this and have said exactly that. So, I would question exactly what form of AI we're talking about. We might look at that and perceive that to be our invention of AI. Maybe that's not what destroys us. Maybe it is this archontic AI technological force that's been doing that and infiltrating us and humanity for a long time. Maybe that's what the bigger picture is. Who knows? It's certainly not natural anyway.
No,
or what we would class as natural.
Lorraine's just said, is this stream glitching for anyone else? So let us know, guys. I think Lorraine's already got her answer, and it doesn't look to be. So it must be just at your end, Lorraine, there, because it doesn't seem to be for me anyway.
No, but, I mean you've paused on once or twice, right? Only very briefly, but no, nothing major that I've seen.
Probably paused because I forgot what I was going to say. That's the only reason I paused. A bit like Columbo tonight, mate.
I'll fuckers, but it's the AI that's glitching.
Yeah, it's the AI. He's a funny man, that fella. I'll tell you now.
So we wanted to talk back to the pyramids and back to one of the. I mean, originally we touted this stream as unusual, mysterious objects, didn't we? And
we did, yeah.
Cases and stuff like that. And I think, I mean, I've always been fascinated, and I think probably all of us, I would have said, unless there's some real culture and history buffs here, have probably became familiar with the Ark through Indiana Jones. I would have thought. So just something about that, the way Spielberg, everything. I mean, look, no matter what you think of Steven Spielberg, his work's amazing, and he's certainly messages encoded and codes within his work. How much what he was trying to say with this, I don't know, but there's definitely some interesting parallels with it.
It's a fabulous thing, isn't it? When even when you look, well, obviously you've got to look back through big biblical text to get information really about the Ark of the Covenant, and did it hold the 10 commandments, the rules that we've got to adhere to through life? And can you imagine if this vessel, whatever it is found, if it is discovered, and it did have these, would it change mankind? Would we suddenly realize that we've got to adhere to the 10 commandments? And it was said to hold a few things, Chris, wasn't it? It was said to hold manna, and you've heard of the manna from heaven, the food. I don't know any more about that, really. Some kind of miraculous food, manna from heaven, that was said to have fed. Was it the Israelites? Somebody's going to shoot me down.
Food of the gods.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, some researchers claim that manna is monatomic gold, don't they?
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know. No, I didn't know.
Yeah, and you might, I suppose you could say, again, there's various descriptions of how the manna was distributed to the people.
Yeah.
Some say it was from within this ark, and obviously the ark was the description and the measurements of the ark were given to Moses, wasn't it? And he found Bezalel. I'll get this wrong. Bezalel was the joiner like yourself that built the ark.
I don't think I could.
Yeah. We should build one. Yeah. Acacia wood, and it was gold on the outside and allegedly gold on the inside, which is why some people claim that this thing was actually a capacitor.
Right. Okay.
And you talked about it, I think, on Truth Proof, was it last week? And you were talking about it, that it was taken into battle by the Israelites, wasn't it?
It was, but there's also talk that. Hold on, just before we move to that, it was said to contain 3 things. So we got manna. And then there was Aaron's rod.
Aaron's rod, that's right.
Staff of life. So I don't know if all magical things, which I find fascinating when we talk about the Bible. And if you visit a church, no stab at people, or no sort of dig at people who visit church, but you're essentially you're worshiping a supernatural being. Whether you like it or not, because of the things that are said and things that could be performed. But that's me just having my little go at that one. But so we've got, it's the presence of God, the 10 commandments, the manna from heaven, the Aaron's rod. But if we boiled it down then and bring it into sort of some kind of context where it's just nothing miraculous and nothing at all, in Ethiopia, they found a giant drum. A giant carved wooden drum, and if you read in the Bible, it says that the ark can level armies before it. Obviously, the wording will be different to what I'm saying, but that's essentially what it means. And people have surmised that perhaps then we've got one soldier, one warrior leading a huge army and banging the drum as they're marching into battle, and that is the ark. So it might be nothing sort of supernatural or magical at all. It just could be a tool, and that's how it's been interpreted.
Well, there was that guy. I was just about to say this. Funny, this question should come up. Good timing, Lorraine. Mike that said Welsman said, if the Ark of the Covenant is real, why has it never been found? Well, allegedly it was found.
Okay.
So, there's a guy called Ron Wyatt who claims that he found this back in, I think, in 1980s, 82 maybe. And I think he toured in the 90s. Some interesting lectures online. And he claims that this is where it gets a bit sketchy, because there's always a bit of a sketchy story, isn't there? He claims that he saw the 10 stone tablets within this ark. Now that's an issue in and of itself, carrying these tablets around, isn't it? But you know, it's all interpretation, I guess. And then he claims that he was visited by he knows exactly. He was told to leave it where it was. It wasn't time for the ark to be displayed to the people. That time would come in the future, and these angels told him this. These angelic beings told him to leave it where it was. And of course, I think, did you mention it earlier when we were talking about it? It's alleged to be kept in Ethiopia, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an interesting documentary with Graham Hancock where he visits Ethiopia, and they speak to these guardians of this temple, and they claim that after a few years of guarding this ark, I don't know whether you want to call them monks or in Ethiopia, I don't suppose you would call them high priests, they get cataracts.
Yeah.
They become ill and they get cataracts, which is interesting, isn't it?
Sounds like radiation or something that's been emitted from, is it the ark or is it something else within the ground, and just something natural within the ground that's doing that?
Well, isn't it the ark that was also? Isn't the ark responsible for smashing down the walls of Jericho? Is that?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
Like, it used to cast out lightning bolts, and it would destroy. It brought down the walls, and these armies would take it. And I think it was stolen. I think the Israelites lost in battle to somebody, and they stole the ark. And what happened? They took the ark back to the city, and it made everybody sick. It killed everybody in the city from radiation. What we would class as they got tumors on the skin.
Looks like a radiation.
Yeah, it looks like
a reactor.
Yeah, and also interesting that the Spielberg depicted it the way he did. If you don't gaze upon the ark, you won't kill your. I don't know.
Just gazing upon it. I mean, I'll just jump away from ark briefly. I spoke to a lovely old lady a few years ago called Annie. I'll not say her surname, and she was suffering from cancer. Am I okay to tell this little story, Chris? I don't want to break in because
go for it. Yeah.
Not directly to do with the ark, but it's interesting. And the most precious thing in her life was a son. And she wrote me a letter and did me drawings. And I don't think I've ever shown anybody drawings. And it's not that I'm not allowed to. Perhaps we ought to do this. And I've read her letters. And when her son, I believe, was in his late teens, early 20s, he suffered a massive, massive stroke. And this lady in later life wanted to relay this story about what happened. And it'll relate to not looking at the ark in a moment in similar terms. And she said, it was touch and go whether he were going to live. She says, and I brought him up. He was my son. He was the world to me. That was it. I prayed and prayed that he would pull through, prayed he would be okay. Says, and one night I woke up in my room, and this lady will have passed away now. I hope she hasn't, but I'm pretty sure she will have done because she were ill when I spoke to her. So I woke up in my room, she says, and there's a dressing table. She said, and this, my son's touch and go. I've been visiting him every day, staying with him hours and hours and hours. She says, and there's a dressing table in my room, and stood with its back to me in the dressing table, but nearly as tall as the ceiling, is an angel. She says, and he's got huge wide shoulders, and he's dressed in white. He says, and his hair looked like a page boy and gold at the back. And he's talking to me in my mind and telling me that I can't turn round. If I turn round and you look at me, it will be too much for you and you will die. So I'm appearing like this, but if I turn round, you surely will die. I will be too much. My presence will be too much for you. But I've come to tell you that your son is going to be all right. He's going to pull through. He will be okay. She says, and that was the end of my angel visitation. And when I went to the hospital, he'd come out of his coma the next day. It's not like a fairy tale, people, but this lady's telling me this, and she's telling me this while she's very ill. He didn't make a full recovery. He's still not got full use in one of his arms. I'm not going to say right or left because I don't know which. But he's managed to forge an existence and a good life for himself, and everything were okay. But interesting when you said if you looked upon the ark, it'd be too much for you. And this angel, and I believe this lady, by the way, and I don't believe everybody I speak to, but I believe this lady. Just like there's certain people that they tell you a story and I absorb it, but it's just gone. It's over the top of my head. But not like Alf, who's in chat. When he told me his story, I know he's telling truth. But I really feel he is. And I believe this lady. And I just thought how apt that this thing had told her that if it turned around, his presence would be too much for her. It's not quite the ark, people, so I do apologise for breaking into Chris's talk.
No, well, look, it's related. The angelic beings, initially they're angelic.
An angel. She's drawn him. You see hair. It kind of curls over. It looks. I'll tell you what it looks like. You know how James Brown used to have his hair?
Oh yeah,
yeah, like that, but obviously golden, almost like golden. Yeah, golden. But yes, and I've got the drawing. I've got other letters here, and all are stuck with me. Certain people, you hear loads and loads of stories, but certain ones stick with you. I got to talk to this lady and could tell how ill she was when she's telling me this, and I'm thinking, good God, you're sharing this with me, and you know, there's a lot of things going off in your life. You didn't have to, so really appreciative of that.
No, well, it's fascinating. I think again, I think the Ark of the Covenant. I think there is so much to talk about with it. Again, all these things that we talk about, it's strange. And actually, guys, in the comments, I'd be really interested to know. And we talked about this in the week, Paul. Remember, sometimes when we get a guest on, and it might be the day, it might be the time, it might be, we seem to get more viewers when it's just you and I.
Yeah.
For some reason, it could be coincidence. I don't know, but are you guys interested more? Like, say we did the Ark. Is the Ark too ancient history? Is it too? Do you guys prefer the UFO, cryptid, ET stuff? Because that's kind of the impression that I'm getting.
Or just mix it up. Do you like it? Just mix
wrong,
it up? But no, I think you make a good point, and it's something me and Les have said. People love the Sundays. And you've just said it now. It's everyone. I mean, sometimes I think what it is when you get somebody on who's going to talk about the subject of UFOs, you get no names included, but you get certain people so they're going to tell you some incredible stories. How long have you got? Have you got 2 hours? And you think, yeah. So well, just tell us something then. And they don't. And that's that. I don't mean that's what they're there for. We're grateful that they're giving us their time, but sometimes it's just an exercise in advertising your books. And we want to, as well as that, because obviously you've got to give people space to do that, because they're giving us an hour, 2 hours of their time. But what I like, people in chat, I'm throwing this out to you, and I'm just saying what I like. When I listen to a podcast, I like to hear something that's thought-provoking and the odd story thrown in. And like Chris has just said, give us an idea of what you want to hear on the last transmission. If it's more UFO related, cryptid related, a mixture of them all. Yeah, give us an idea, please.
Well, all people say, just mix it up. Everybody's saying here, mix it up. It's relative. Natural ginger, great topic. Ark's a great topic. I am Slayer God. It all ties together. Yeah. Diversity of subjects. It all seems interlinked anyway. Margaret Webster's saying, yeah.
Margaret makes a good point.
Yeah. Gilly B, mix it up. Okay, we'll carry on then. Mixing it up. Mix it up best we can. Mag Webster, I enjoyed the diversity of subjects and it all seems interlinked anyway. Yeah, I mean, I tend to, I think we all have our, we're all different. We all have our little niches. And sometimes I can listen to a podcast on something most people really wouldn't enjoy. But it might be research related, but I don't know. We're all different, aren't we?
Well, I look in chat and I see names, and there's Tom Waters there. And thanks for that, Tom, saying you've just put it up to being great tonight. But, Tom put me in touch with a farmer, and I can't remember his name, Tom, so I'm not going to expose the guy, but he sent me some photographs. And Tom had seen them before me. And Tom might be a better place to tell me location and everything. I can't remember. But this guy had took photographs in a remote area of a huge light projecting from the ground. I think we maybe played it on here, actually. I maybe showed the images at one time on here. If not, I'll look for them and see if I can find a little bit more text and information in the guy's emails. But I love these random things where people who aren't in some podcast chat or viewing these things have got no interest in it, but something so profound has happened to them that they feel they've got to reach out. Those stories are really interesting to me, because normally these people wouldn't have any interest in what we're all doing tonight.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I'll tell you, I've just noticed that we've got a couple of things. So in fact, I'm just going to say, I'm going to put the next bit of unexplained footage on, Paul. And before I do, I'm just going to say two words: real or fake. So you guys watch this and put it in the comments, and you guys. So I better scan the comments now. I'm going to put the comments in so I can see.
Kim King saying real, 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 real. Alf saying real. Let's have a look. For the most part, I think what we've got to think here, and I'll shut up about this because you've been looking at this footage all day. So Margaret Webster saying fake. Jury's out, Zeno. But I think for the most part, we've got to say, could we replicate that today with that camera?
Yeah, I agree. So there's sort of made some notes today, and it's similar to, ironically, this ties in. It's similar to what I said about Todd Standing's footage, and it kind of applies here. And there's coincidental filming. Now, obviously, a lot of people know that, or might not know that Patterson was trying to find money, wasn't he, for this?
No, I don't know.
Yeah, he was trying to make money from filming Bigfoot prior to filming it, if you know what I mean. So a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, it's a bit convenient. But
how convenient, yeah.
Well, it is convenient, but at the same time, this is kind of what we're all doing. We're all, especially you and I, we're going out there trying to film this stuff. If we happen to get the golden nugget and someone says, I'll buy that off you for 20 grand, we're going to go, absolutely, there you go.
Yeah.
So I don't think we can be too critical about this. And similar to Todd as well, people talk about the missing. There's some additional footage. Now, I've heard we've got a friend. Tell us about that. You've got a friend that has either seen this or knows about it. Is that right?
I've got a friend. We've not had her on live stream, either last transmission or truth proof. And I've got a very good friend who's a friend of this lady's. Let's just put it like that. And I know this lady, and I've exchanged a lot of quite a bit of correspondence with this lady, and she's got more footage. They've got the Patterson Gimlin footage, so I'm told, and she's got a lot more of it. There's more. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, they filmed the footprints,
and I don't. Sorry, Chris, go on.
They filmed the prints and everything, didn't they?
Yeah. So So what I'm saying is, I don't think that we're ever going to get anybody on a live stream who's going to give us an exclusive and show us that footage, because potentially it's worth a lot of money. So that's not going to happen to us, but it would be wonderful to get them on and see whether they want to share it. Likewise, I've been talking to the lady who used to be caretaker at Skinwalker before Skinwalker became known for what it is. And I'm trying to get her to talk either on Truth Proof or on Last Transmission. And she will do. I think she will. But she's also had to sign, what do they call it?
Non-disclosure.
Yeah. So there's certain things that can never be spoken about. So it must be difficult for somebody, because you could throw a question in, and quite unexpectedly on a live stream, you could say something and just drop yourself in it. So that might have to be. We're not talking about Patterson Gimlin film, but if this has ever done, it might have to be a pre-record, because I won't want to put anybody in that position. But yeah, real or fake, I don't know. Jury's out for me.
Did they ever say why? I just find it unusual. I mean, it may well be to protect Sasquatch, if that's the way they're thinking. Is that the reason they're not putting this footage out?
I don't know. I really don't know. And there is more footage. Rivington Pike says, yeah, there is more footage. I'm told. That is not a suit. The muscles ripple, Natural Ginger says. So, you know, I don't think there's a right or a wrong answer here. Well, there is a right answer, but what I'm saying is I don't think we should shoot anybody down for saying they think it's fake. Likewise, I think we should respect the ones that think this maybe is the genuine article, because at this stage, we simply don't know, and we might never know. And, the
interesting part about it is that there's thousands and thousands of witnesses, tens of thousands of witnesses now, that sort of, it's getting to the point now where it doesn't really matter whether it's real, if you know what I mean.
Mm.
You know,
you're spot on, and it doesn't matter for those who've seen and experienced, Chris, because they're not believers. They know.
Yeah,
they know. There's Alf in chat. There's nobody observed something similar to that longer, to my knowledge, than that fella and his friend. And I saw what that did to him emotionally when I spent time with him in that location. And he's either a good actor or it's happened. And he's not an actor, I'll tell you now. That's why I've got so much faith in that fella. And just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's real personally. Or if I had to go either side of the fence, I'd definitely go to I think it's real. Yeah.
John Paul says, I always thought it was faked, which I don't think it is. Why didn't other different footage appear? If back then they could make as much convincing as the Bigfoot suit. Yeah, you're right. You know, I struggle to believe that we haven't had anything quite as convincing. When was it filmed? What year was that film? The Patterson film?
Don't know.
We're going back decades. Let's put it that way. If we can't think at year, and I can't, so I have to put you on spot. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, with the same thing in mind, guys, have a look at this, because this is just as, I don't think it's just as controversial, but it's controversial. So have a look at this one. Where are we? All right, real or fake?
Why?
So what people...
Well, I'll jump on fence myself here, and I don't know if I'm right, but I don't pretend to think that that's genuine myself.
Yeah, that's, you know, the Victor vid. Interesting though, isn't it? I think it's fake. It's very well done. It's really well done. I think there's just a few things just about the way that guy comes in with a torch, almost like deliberately lighting its face up for effect. I mean, if this thing's in distress, would you really be shining that thing in its bloody eyes over and over?
You'd think you'd come in with infrared goggles on or something, wouldn't you, so that you're not causing more trauma?
Yeah, and surely if this thing were telepathic, which allegedly it was, this is supposedly filmed at S4 in Area 51, the infamous S4. Wouldn't it be telling them telepathically that it's not feeling very well? Wouldn't it? Or
well, perhaps. Well, I think that whoever's commenting on that is actually saying it's not very well at the moment, and so I don't know if that were allegedly being relayed at the time. But to me, it don't seem real. But I could be wrong. What do I know?
Yeah, well, that there's a filmmaker called John Stewart, and he came forward. I think only a few months ago. It might have been. It's not long ago, and he claims that a guy from an anonymous source from Area 51 told him that Victor, who was the guy that sold the original tape,
Right,
or tried to sell the original tape with this footage, he got it smuggled out. That guy's allegedly called Stanton John Willett.
right.
And his name is allegedly on the official S4 logs.
Okay.
But look, that's like me saying, yeah, well, my name's on that log as well. Prove it's not.
No way of proving it, and mine's on it as well.
Yeah. Well, you're never going to see that log.
No.
But really interesting. I remember watching that, and again, same as the Patterson Gimlin stuff. There's two really good documentaries on YouTube, free ones about the alien interview and Victor. I don't know. It's really, really interesting. And back in that sort of came around that time when this sort of thing was being done. I think there's another one actually that was done in CGI probably not that long ago, maybe 10 years ago. Have you ever seen that one? It's a real art, but CGI, and it's just it's not very good at all. But never mind.
And then there were the alien autopsy. We haven't got time to look into that one. I know Philip Mantle's had a lot to say about that one. Oh, just before we close down, because we'll be getting Philip on for an hour to talk about his favourite subject, Pascagoula. And just when you think there's nothing else to talk about Pascagoula, believe me, Philip's put this together with Dr. Irina Scott. So we will be getting Philip on it next week or two. And we'll also get Philip on Truth Proof as well, because he's not been very well. And I think it's good to let Philip talk and share his views and experiences, not just on Pascagoula. We want some other information out of him as well. So he's not just going to get away with Pascagoula.
Yeah, we've probably got quite a lot you could throw at Phil.
Yeah, absolutely.
Zeno, I remember this documentary from the 90s. Yeah, me too. I remember the alien autopsy craze. Victor is apparently a spook, and most people were convinced it was a puppet. Yeah, it's just its movements were just not quite there, were they? They really needed someone from Stan Winston's school to have done that, I would have thought. But interesting enough to have made a lot of publicity and probably made a few quid on quiet.
Perhaps, yeah, absolutely. But we're not making a few quid out of this, people. We're doing it because we've got a passion for it. And it's been great speaking to you all tonight. And we've kept well over 100 people glued to it. I think we went up to close to 200 at one time. So really appreciate support, guys. Give us an idea of what kind of things you want to be talking about in week. Fire it at Chris, fire it at myself, and we'll try and cater for what you guys want. And thanks, Karen.
Sure. Karen, thank you very much again. Really appreciate your donation as ever. Karen's always there. Thank you very much. So we've no guest. Actually, we have got a guest on for next week, haven't we?
Yes, they're back. Is it?
Yes,
have I got it wrong?
Back. So I know we've been talking about this for bloody months, haven't we? So finally, we got Pierre back on. So you guys are likely to have, if you've been watching us for the last couple of months, you'll probably know quite a bit about Pierre. He's not been in the chat tonight, but he'll be watching this later on, I would have thought. So have your questions ready.
And hit him with anything as technical as you like, and because he'll do his best to answer, and he's a great guy. So I'm looking forward to speaking with Pierre.
The good thing about Pierre is that he don't get too caught up in his complex work, because what's great about Pierre is that if you have a conversation about him away from that, he knows a lot about. He's just written a book on the fair, for example.
I'm just looking.
He knows a lot about a lot, and his theories are really, really interesting. So, Nicky Brown, thank you so much for the mission. Really appreciate that.
I do apologise, Pierre, but because I have got the other one, but that's Pierre Sabac, what holographic culture. But I mean, look at the thickness of that, and I find it hard going. Not because it's a boring read, because Pierre's a really eyebrow. It's really technical stuff.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway.
what we're going to do is I'm going to put some stuff together during the week so that we can try and not deconstruct what Pierre's saying, but make it in a 2-hour show that we can fit in what it is. He's all of his research, and it's not just holographic culture, there's other stuff as well. So, yeah. So we're at the end.
No, Nuki Brown, thank you. And
Yep.
I think I'd like to say good night from myself. And thank you, Chris. Thanks, Lorraine, for doing moderating.
Thanks, Lorraine.
And thanks, everybody, for staying with us tonight. And we'll see you soon.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.